Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another breakfast with Blaha. And again, Greek yogurt, almond butter, frozen blueberries. All right, let's talk about accessory lifts. This is something I see come up in comments and on Facebook quite a bit. People will say things like, hey, what is the best accessory lift for squat, bench, deadlift, whatever? And the problem with that is that there is no best accessory lift. Now, I've kind of quoted Dr. Ben Pollock before and said, the good morning might be the best overall accessory for the squat and the deadlift, but that's not even entirely true. It's a phenomenal accessory, absolutely, but it's not guaranteed to be the best. And what's the same answer that I give you guys when it comes to hypertrophy? That there is no single best exercise for any muscle in the body. Most people understand that. We know why. We've discussed why. That we need multiple lifts. I mean, the best lift is to combine multiple good lifts for that muscle group, particularly ones that complement each other by working the muscles slightly different. When we come back over to accessory lifts, why do we do accessory work? Well, number one, usually to get bigger. Hypertrophy. If we can hypertrophy the primary movers, and particularly our weakest link, on a big exercise, we get stronger at it. Now, people say, but there's a neuromuscular component, a skill component to strength, not just size. That's true. But size is still the largest part of it for you as an individual, which again, I've covered many times in the past as to why that is and how we determine that. If you get bigger, you're going to get stronger. If you are strength training appropriately, that's the main key. If you do pure hypertrophy work with no strength training, you may not get significantly stronger yet. You'll get stronger later after you do more skill work and max work with a new muscle that you built. But if you're doing it already, you're going to get stronger in proportion to your muscle growth. So we do it for hypertrophy. Number two, we do stuff for certain joint angle specificities or correcting movement patterns. So if you look at it from that perspective, do you see the problem here? How do you have a best accessory lift? If it's addressing overall hypertrophy or more specifically weak points, different people have different weak points. Your weak points might change. So how can there be a best hypertrophy exercise for your weak links that would be the same for everyone? There can't be. Then we come to that point of, but don't we benefit from more than one movement, right? Now, of course, the primary exercise could be one of those. And then we deal again with some joint angle specificities relative to where you're missing. So we have to look at a lift and figure out where you're missing. Now, we could say there's a lot of good general accessories. Look, anything that builds the pecs and triceps will probably be a good bench accessory. Anything that develops your back and posterior chain, probably be a good deadlift accessory. Anything that develops the quads, glutes, adductors is probably a pretty good squat accessory. Just as a general rule. It's a general rule. But I'll give you an example of what I mean. Let's take the bench press. Let's say that you personally missed the bench out of the bottom. Now, when people claim that on the internet, and if I'm not looking at their footage, I don't know that they're being honest. Why? If you lower a weight and it hits your chest and you can't drive it off, did you miss off the chest on a bench? No, you did not miss off the chest. You did an eccentric with a weight that's probably 10 pounds too heavy for you to have any chance to bench. Off the chest is not your weak link. You just got buried because you put too much weight on the bar. That's it. That's not weak off the chest. Weak off the chest means you come down, you pause, you drive, bar gets 3 inches off your chest. Sticks for a second and then comes back down. That's missing off the chest. Well, how do we fix that? Well, there's not even a best accessory. We could make a point of, hey, you might need bigger pecs and bigger lats. Probably be a good idea. Okay, So anything that hypertrophy does is good. You probably would benefit from some speed work or long pause rep work on your bench. Because it could be a technical issue. You may not be producing force hard enough to drive through that sticking point. So speed work will help, dynamic effort benching. So will pause benching. If you're doing longer pauses, what happens? You have to learn to stay tight and then explode through that point. Because you might be sticking there due to a technique issue because you don't know how to stay tight. You're too loose. So you need to practice the pauses to get tight. Plus, they tend to work the chest pretty well. Like, those are options. But you see where we're going? I gave you two separate technique options that are both very good, and you could probably use both if you're weak off the chest. Well, what about hypertrophy stuff? You could argue illegal wide benching. But we can't do that for a real long time, can we? That's not an exercise you can come in and do twice a week for 10 weeks straight. Your shoulders won't handle it. But it is extremely effective. It's not the best because you can't just keep doing it. You have to do other stuff. All right, so what are our other options? I'd argue dumbbell presses. Why? They give us a stretch reflex just below where we start on the bench. Hypertrophies very effectively the chest muscles. Dumbbell bench pressing is phenomenal for chest development. Hopefully, I don't think anyone disagrees with that. Let's make that clear. I don't think anyone, whether it's a bodybuilding related person or a powerlifting related person, disagrees with that. Dumbbell chest presses are a fantastic pec exercise. They are. Okay, well, maybe you could do some of those. Not only is it hypertrophy, it gives us some specificity, right? Because it creates a stretch reflex right before your miss point. It's going to be some joint angle specificity carry over there. That's really beneficial. Maybe dips. Dips wouldn't be a bad choice either, would they? Floor pressing, particularly people with thick chests and backs, right? Guys with smaller frames, not so much, but if come back over to the point, if you've got a thicker frame, if you've got a thicker back, big lats, floor pressing can actually be really good for building power off the chest, both through hypertrophy and learning to generate force from that dead stop, and very much right about probably close to where you stick. Right? If your floor press stops an inch off your chest because you're thick enough to do that, that will help correct an issue off the chest. Someone whose floor press is 4 to 5 inches above their chest due to, again, their size, it might not be as helpful there. So just using the bench as an example, which is my worst exercise, but I coach a lot of guys who can bench a lot more than me. But just using the bench as an example, do you guys see how there is no one best solution for the same sticking point, let alone multiple sticking points? And that's the problem with this idea, that there's a best accessory exercise. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.